I'm going to be talking fairly esoterically about what's going on in front of your eyes, and trying not to really say anything in particular, partly because I don't really think it's appropriate. I think it's better to let the video talk for itself, but I kind of want to be here as the omnipresent voice in your head saying, is this really the best we can do? Is this really what Thomas is now? And the thing is, this first clip you're seeing, this is the best it's going to get. Cairns Toy World frankly surprised me, because it was astonishing how much Trackmaster stock there was. The only store that came close to this kind of level was my local store in Bundaberg, although that was not Trackmaster based, mainly Wooden Railway, which I have to commend that store for. It's amazing when you consider the fact that Cairns is a fairly big city, sure, but it isn't massive. And the reality is, I mean, I didn't go many other places in Cairns, but there just didn't seem like there was much anywhere. And you kind of see that. I start with the Toy Worlds and the Toy Mates because they had the most stock by a wide margin. When we start talking about the big box stores, we start to see a very quick decline in stock. I went to a few during my trip and after the fact, and I have to say, there are some that are better than others. In Leokimvideo, which is on a similar sort of level as this, although probably a bit more polished, I love those white introductory slides, he sort of talks about Kmart a lot, and I sort of try to avoid talking about Kmart. In fact, there is no Kmart in this video, partly because it's gone the way of the dodo when it comes to Thomas stock. It used to have a lot. I think as a kid I vaguely recall that. But now it is basically just a drag and a shell of its former self. Kmart's sort of doing weird things though. And I could make an argument that, at least for my local Kmart, they focus a lot more on homewares and clothes than toys, especially when compared to the likes of Big W and Target. A lot of these stores were a bit disappointing for me. I think Townsville has already passed in the recording, but I think I'll talk about it a bit briefly now. Townsville was rather depressing, although that's partly because the store is a new location. When it was in its old location, it actually had a fairly large selection of stuff. In fact, it's where I got most of my boxed TWR destinations. My service station, of all things, came from there. My Sodal log loader came from there. And in fact, a lot of my Mattel stuff came from there as well. Toy World was one of the best stores for older Thomas stuff. Even into the mid-2010s, it still had these items on shelves and only getting cheaper. But now, with the move to a new location, well, new location for the store, it's been moved for years now, they sort of lost that, and it always feels like the stock there was just depressing. Like I mentioned, the Bundy store is probably one of the best. I love the staff there, they're really friendly, and it's got a really nice sort of vibe to it. I know that's not really a great word to say, but it's probably the best way I have to describe it. Target is okay, and Target varies a lot. The one in Mackay was fairly well stocked, although I think it was more well stocked last time I was there. I usually go to North Queensland about once a year, and I have to say this time was a little bit depressing. Big W tends to be your best bet, and looking back at some historical photos I do actually have some photos I really need to share somewhere. It's fascinating to see how much less both these stores have now compared to what they had in the past. Because looking back, they had Wooden Railway, they had Take Along, Take and Play, they had Adventure, they had all these other ranges, Trackmaster, whatnot. Now, it really is, for the most part, just the motorized and just the metal trains. Sure, they've got some minis, but minis is doing weird things as well. And you'll see in a few of these clips that minis is just kind of there now. I remember back when it launched, it was this big deal, and it was something that everyone got into, and now it's sort of fizzled out. A lot of what you're seeing you can really easily blame on Mattel. It's not the store's fault. The fact that they got burnt with the likes of wood and just overall Mattel bullshittery, it kind of makes sense. We're at where we are now. It is mildly depressing, and I would like something to be done. But what can be done? Mattel is not exactly the best. The Wooden Railway range, which I have to say the new range has been wildly popular, is not getting any updates. They drip feed us new Trackmaster and push-along stuff, and people really adore it when it does come out, but it just does not appear. In this video, you've seen a few interesting things. For one, you saw, towards the start of the video, a Trackmaster whiff. And towards the end of this video, you'll see me pick up a push-along Henry and push-along whiff. I ended up buying those characters simply because I know that in, say, a year's time, I will not be able to find them again. And that comes down to really poor distribution, because they'll still be in stores in America, it's just we won't get them here. It happened with Wood as well. I'll give them credit, at least the new Wooden Railway range is somewhat easy to find in Queensland, although as you can see, it is by no means consistent what they have and where they have it. Again, the Bundy store is the best for this, and I think Chermside is pretty good as well in Brisbane, but I don't have any videos of that, sadly. Maybe I'll do a follow-up to this at a later date. Either way, it's been nearly 7 minutes, which is the length of this video, and I've babbled about a lot of things in that time. I hope you've all enjoyed this sort of weird look. I think I dropped an item around here too. I think it's hilarious. I hope you've enjoyed this sort of esoteric look and sort of confusing sort of rambling of a guy who is trying to film this video at 3 in the morning.